if you're going to hear an audio version of this, which you can also subscribe to. But if you're watching on video, thank you ever so much. And thank you even more so if you are joining us live. This is our chance to discuss what has happened over the course of the Austrian GP weekend and what we're looking forward to in the next few days. And the best part is, you, just like me, can learn along the go because I haven't been following the weekend at all. I've been too busy doing the Rugby Premier League in India that I have absolutely no clue of any guidelines or Max talking to Mercedes or who top free practice. Or I even heard that there were F2 drivers driving in the FP1. Like I wasn't even aware of that. Like what am I missing, guys? Who's going first with this? Kunal, you had something to say about some guidelines.
Yes, if I release their penalty guidelines, which tell us what is it that they do, how do they view on track infringements by drivers, and how do they see and give a penalty, and what the penalty is? Is it a time penalty? Is it a stop go penalty? Is it a drive through various penalties? And crucially, they also said which infringement actually gets you penalty points on the driving license, which is something that's become even more popular since Max is on 11 points since before the Canadian Grand Prix. He kept it clean there. It's going to be very difficult to keep it clean this weekend, not just for Max, but for anyone. That's just how the circuit is. So, but you've not missed much, Soumil, because those guidelines, I haven't read them. Okay, I just glanced through
Neither have
them,
I.
and there we go. And the reason why I say this is the interpretation can change from person to person. And I'll give you two examples. Going by those guidelines, the FIA actually meant to say that for the Spanish Grand Prix, where Max Verstappen Mario karted his way into George Russell, he should have had 4 penalty points, not 3, which would have meant that Max would have actually had his race ban for Canada. Okay, but that didn't happen, and they said, we didn't think it was deliberate, but Max himself turned up and said, I actually should have done it differently. I mean, when you anyway, so that was that. And then there was something else, that for Qatar, where he was actually given a penalty point. uh, uh, or was it Jeddah? I can't remember. Anyway, some race that he was given a penalty point. I think it was Qatar last year. Okay, he actually wouldn't have received a penalty point. So, my dear friend Soumil Arora, focus on your rugby. I'm waiting for it to get done with this Sunday. In a way, I'm a little annoyed. You've swapped Formula One for rugby, but I know why you've done that.
Oh, it's a really fun sport. It's an amazing sport. And I hear you're filling instead of me on the Fan Code Hindi broadcast. So that's very cool. So that's even more fun. But
So, so even
what
I've
else?
even I've missed out on stuff this week. Then
Yeah, that's what I was about to ask you. Like, what else? What else do you think we've missed out on?
One thing, let me, you of course, thank you. It's going to be very, I realize you have very big shoes to fill on the broadcast. I'm just going to come with a different pair of shoes itself, because I think the work that Chetan and you have done on the official broadcast on Fan Code in Hindi is brilliant. I love that you all are localizing, nationalizing, regionalizing Formula One. And yeah, I'm eager to see how I go. I have been preparing notes. I understand how busy it is, and I'm going to exchange notes with you after the race weekend. And actually, for everyone knowing, Soumil actually coached me a little bit a couple of nights ago. So thank you very much for all the tips and tricks, Soumil.
Nothing happened. Nothing happened.
oh wait, Kunal's doing it in Hindi.
Yeah.
I've
Yes.
almost never heard him speak about F1 in Hindi.
Oh, yeah. That's actually true. I have heard a little bit, very
Oh,
recently.
this I'm going to tune into this now.
But well, Austria is known for a race of being firsts for Indians, especially in recent time in Formula One. Kush Maini drove his first ever F1 car in Austria last year. I was there for Fan Code and for Kush Maini. So this year, Austria will be the race I make a debut doing F1 commentary, and that to doing F1 commentary in Hindi or English or whatever. But yeah, I think the language is not so much so the challenge in my head. At least that's what I feel right now before I go into a 71 lap race on Sunday. But the key challenge is going to be, how do you sort of make sure you, like Soumil said, just focus on the action on the screen. You don't always have to look beyond it. Tell us what's happening on screen, like, which is very different from my way of watching Formula One, as you guys know. But yeah, I'm eager to see how that happens, and I have to make sure I keep the seat warm for Soumil to be back for the British Grand Prix.
Wonderful.
Add more seats. I think we need four of them. You, honestly, if we can bring this to the live F1 Hindi broadcast, it'll be so much fun. Like, come on, Sundaram, we can do this. Let's make this happen.
I'm actually sorry. I was drifting away. I'm like, okay, Somil's going to be doing rugby commentary. Kunal's going to be doing F1 commentary. I need to go and do commentary somewhere myself, just so that
IRL,
we.
couple of months later.
No, but I'm saying this Sunday. I'm saying this Sunday.
Just kidding, just kidding.
But great. This sounds great.
But you guys are also actually going tomorrow. I know it's very late for Indian Standard Time. You all are going tomorrow to watch the F1 movie. F1 Stats Guru is actually calling his followers down. So it's going to be a packed audience in the morning in
Hopefully.
Mumbai watching. No, we know it's packed. You know it's packed. Okay. But
10:15 in the morning.
yeah, but there's space for a few people who are still tuning into the broadcast at
Yeah.
this hour, wondering what am I going to do at 10:15 in the morning when it's like almost 12:30 in the night. But yes, that's what's happening. So penalty guidelines, fan code F1 Hindi, your F1 movie screening, or not screening, but F1 movie, what's it called? You're watching it, watch along.
Watching
Yeah.
along.
So you all are seeing that together. Maybe we can spend a few minutes just talking about the F1 movie, because I know I've seen it. I know you've seen it, Sundaram. I know Soumil is supposed to see it tomorrow, along with. I think Soumil's wondering why should we be talking about the F1 movie, but
No spoilers. No spoilers. Or should we?
I don't know. I just loved the movie. I'm so glad you're watching it again. I don't know when it's going to be my time to go watch it again, but I think it's fantastic that you're already going and watching it again.
Oh, I've always wanted to watch it at least twice, but I think I'll watch it 3 times because I also have to do it with the family once they fly down next week. Um, but to be very honest, I think a lot of us kind of already know what the movie is like. There's been lots and lots of reviews speaking about the good and bad aspects of the movie. But one thing I will say, keep aside all the reviews, even if you are someone who really loves having a very good story that's woven in perfectly and everything, every F1 fan should watch this movie, regardless of how you feel about it eventually. I actually went in with very low expectations because of those very reviews, but I was literally blown away over the next 2.5, 3 hours. Edge of the seat stuff that you see on screen, and the whole cinematography and the background score is something I cannot stop praising. It's That's why I say I kept the story aside, because as F1 fans we know what really doesn't happen in the sport, but we kept that aside and we truly enjoyed the entertainment. So if you're an F1 fan, if you're not an F1 fan, just go and watch it. You'll love it. You're on mute.
Yes. And if you're an F1 fan, go watch it and take 20 friends and family members with you, because I think
Yes.
that to me is the most crucial part. Take newer audiences to go watch that movie. And everything about that movie is what actually happens in Formula 1. Of course there's racing, there's drama, there's rivalry, there is love, there is lust, there are egos, there are people questioning their space in the sport, there are people questioning other people's space in the sport, there are corporate espionages, there are and again, I mean, we see this, that there's a love story that's happening. i have seen I have known drivers, and this is where I'll never name them, actually having affairs in the paddock. And it's sort of, I mean, we're all humans after a point, right?
Yeah.
But I would say that everyone should go watch it. There is just one part of the film which I sort of didn't like. Only reason I say that is this part where Brad Pitt is bending the rules in certain occasions to get the team to have a strategy or score points or whatever. And I wish that's something they stayed away from, because the why do we hate Flavio Briatore? let's put it straight, blunt up front, is because he broke a rule that we all knew can be broken, but shouldn't be broken. And that's a rule which people keep questioning, saying, why is Michael Schumacher winning all the races? He's probably just paying more to get something. For example, all the laymen
Yeah.
and laywomen, whatever. So anyway, I just wish they stayed away from that sort of bending of, because everything else is very, very real in terms of narratives.
I would have really liked it if it was rather than someone in their mid 50s coming back after 3 decades. It's still a little bit more believable if it's someone in their mid 40s coming back after 5 years. That's when I actually got to know that being the premise of the movie. I'm like, no, please, this cannot be real. And I'm not sure if you knew about that, Samuel, or anyone else who's listening to this. That's the premise of the movie, which there itself I was like, it's already starting to become very unbelievable. But what I actually try to understand, what I actually understand is there's two very interesting dialogues. And see, it's not a spoiler as such. At the very start of the movie, person A asks person B, have you ever seen a miracle in Formula One? And person B says, never, not yet. And at the very end of the movie, the person says, now I've seen a miracle. And if you're anyone who's followed F1 over the years, over the decades, you pretty much know that miracles don't happen in F1. It's very systematic. It's very the evolution of all of these things take a very step by step process. It's almost never that the team that finishes last for 10 races goes on and wins a race. So you almost never see miracles of that sort happening in F1. That's what they tried to do in a matter of three hours, and that's why they had to take so much of a creative liberty to go away from what really happens in F1. So sorry, Soumil, if that's giving too much away. I'm going to shut up right now and yeah.
No, but I kind of knew this, I kind of did because when they announced that as the premise of the movie, I thought Driven is the exact same story. Sylvester Stallone coming back to help out a new young driver. That movie was also built upon similar foundations, just bending the rules a little bit, make it more cinematic, more Hollywood. That's okay. But what excites me the most, I haven't seen it yet, is the cinematography. Like, the same director made Top Gun Maverick, and just looking at the shots, not just of Formula One, but also Daytona, and just seeing how the McLaren technology center looked with that good of cameras. Or Formula One cars from the inside, and the crashes, and the grid, and the national anthems, and the fighter jets flying over you when you're at Monza. That kind of stuff. It's unreal. We haven't seen the sport like that. So I think we need more of it. We genuinely do.
And the one thing that I really loved, at least from someone who's in India, when I went to watch the premiere, there were tons and tons of people who were nowhere associated to Formula One. There were celebrities, there were media folk, there were content creators from all different genres. All of them had come to celebrate F1 and get to know F1. And I was so happy being in that theater that there's so many people here wanting to know what the sport that I love. And it was such an emotional and very happy moment for me that everyone's talking about F1 for a change in India. So that was very nice to see as someone who tries to learn and loves the sport. So yeah, that was very nice. Again, Kunal, you're on mute.
My goodness, on one hand, I have my daughter who's several hundred meters away screaming because she's aware I'm on live stream with you guys. So I keep forgetting I need to unmute myself. But while Somil is showing us his green screen, or at least that's what I see, Manny is asking, how does it compare? It being the F1 movie, compare to other films like Steve McQueen's Le Mans, Frankenheimer's Grand Prix, or even Rush. Now, interestingly, I haven't seen any of these. I've seen Rush, yes, no doubt. Somil very nicely mentioned Driven. If anyone's ever watched Driven, please don't watch it again. Driven's an absolute. They made a mockery of the racing. That's what this film doesn't do. This film actually showcases how difficult it is to go racing. They've shown how difficult Brad and the other, driver, other actor, working so hard to make sure that they remain race fit, and they've shown a lot of realistic scenes. So I would say it's probably the best motorsport film just because of the tech they've used to sort of make things happen as well. Mohammed has also sent a question. It's about Lando Norris, but we'll come to Austria in just a couple of more minutes. Let's still, enjoy talking about the F1 movie because I just can't stop talking about it. And like I said, even yesterday, Sarang and I did a live stream. It's also out as a podcast that Formula One needs more outsiders talking about Formula One.
Yeah.
Okay, and
Yeah.
this movie is already doing that. I can see that. I've seen lots of influential people, and when I say influential, I mean people who are popular who said, "Oh, I was not sure what to expect, and I watched it, and would love to see how this impacts the Austrian Grand Prix viewership all over the world because this movie actually, or this race actually gets this big marketing flip, right? That there we go. There's a movie now. Come, let's go watch the race.
I almost thought everyone's forgotten that we have a race this weekend. Everyone was just so engrossed in talking about the movie, but that's okay. They really put on a lot of effort over these last 3 years. So it's okay if they take a little bit of limelight away from the Grand Prix, but focus has shifted. And maybe this is the right time for us all to shift focus to the Austrian Grand Prix.
Let's go. Let's start with Mohammad's question. He's been patient. He's waiting. Mohammad has sent a question which is now up on the screen. Do you guys think Lando should create a siege mentality? It's me against the world kind of thing to motivate him and help him try and win the drivers' championship, just like Max Lewis used to do when they were up against it. Very interesting question. Soumil, are you back on the grid or are we still seeing you green?
Oh, I am. I am. I am.
Great.
You see me though.
Yes, we see you.
You do. I'm flickering a little bit. Just bear with me on this. Some
Your voice
things.
is perfect.
Yeah, perfect. That's more like it. God bless the internet. Lando, again, it's a hack. All sports psychologists will always guide you, and most of them, these folks, do have sports psychologists. The way it works is you have to create a belief system for yourself. For some, it's I'm the best in the world. For some, it's me against the world. Whatever works for you. For Lando Norris, that belief system so far has been I'm the nice guy. I'm going to be the nice world champion. And patience will be rewarded and all the hard work will be rewarded. It's I think it's very person to person dependent. I think it'll be wrong for us to comment on what he should adopt as a mindset to win. But whatever it is, he's got to be more adaptable to difficult situations because that's what's been the challenge in my opinion so far. And Oscar has just been the more consistent person. Now, whether that's mentally or down to driving style, I think it's a tough answer to tell. Maybe proportionately, it might be, I don't know, 60-40 in some way. That's hard for us to tell. That's the people who really are in the thick of it, the team with all the data and the team principal and the likes. But for us, I think all we can say is when those opportunities come, when life is flowing in your way, you better do what you can to optimize it. And this weekend, from what I read before this episode, Lando had the advantage out of FP2, 3 tenths up on Oscar. Although there's a caveat I hear. I hear that they're hearing different specs of cars slightly.
Yes, that's actually very, very important to state. And the different specs of cars, actually, if I understand this correctly, is that McLaren are working hard to bring upgrades that will help Lando Norris get a feel of the car again, the way
Hmm.
he's used to it. Okay, and by the way, it was just 1.5 tenths in FP2. Not that I would go by those numbers, but it was 0.157. I just opened up the results. But yeah, my point is, McLaren actually got a new suspension geometry in Canada, which Lando Norris decided to use. Oscar Piastri said, "I'm not using it because that suspension geometry is actually there to help Lando get a better feel of the car. It's working to, in fact, they've got further upgrades this race as well for the rear corner of the car to try and help Lando get that feel back. Okay, so if it's not really an upgrade, like Oscar explained, it's just a different component. And Oscar is choosing to, or at least in Canada, he chose to not use it. FP2 has literally just about ended. All the data will come in. I will see it later tonight. But that's what they were talking of. And yeah, I mean, it could still be different specs where somebody's trying on a new wing or somebody's trying on something else here and there and the likes. But McLaren have definitely They've got some upgrades here. And if you want to know what upgrades they got a front suspension upgrade. They got a front and a rear corner. Okay, and that rear corner actually gives them an alternative rear suspension geometry. And that rear suspension geometry, if I can get as technical as I can get, is what the team is pinning hopes on to get Lando Norris that confidence in the car back to attack and get those crucial, 10th, half a tenth in qualifying, which is where we've seen all the gaps be this season.
I have a question to throw things up a little bit, Sundaram. So, by introducing an update to specifically make sure that Lando can come up, are McLaren in a way stating who's number one and who needs to catch up?
I wouldn't think so. I don't think so. That's what they're trying to do, because to be very honest, their number one in that sense would I be Oscar Piastri, because he's been much more consistent than Lando has been. What it basically allows Lando is to be able to push that car a little bit more fearlessly without being under pressure and still not putting it in the wall. So, and that always happens in those crunch moments in Q3, where for that extra tenth or extra 2 tenths, he's really pushing it hard and something goes wrong. And what it does seem to be the case that the car is quick, but when you push it to the limit is when it starts going slightly off balance. Oscar is able to really tame it fairly better, but they're probably just increasing the sort of balance window where Lando is able to perform a little bit better. I don't think so. It's a case of them saying he's the number one driver. They want to see both drivers comfortable and to be able to score as many points as possible. So I don't think so. They're clearly saying who's number one or number two.
And Soumil, I mean, it's also on the team to get both drivers to be comfortable. Okay,
Hmm.
so it's different. It's a different scenario if you are developing the car in a direction which suits just one driver versus you giving your drivers all the tools that he or she would need
Red Bull.
to.
Exactly.
But we should talk
Maybe
about
that's
Red
what's
Bull.
different.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what's different between McLaren and Red Bull Racing. Like, would they? Of course, it also makes a difference to see how similar or different the styles are. Max's style, from what we've heard, is all very different. So I think Red Bull might be inclined not to change that as much. But yeah, what's going on with them? I heard understeer is the issue somewhere. Like that's what Max said after one of the practice sessions. What's going on there?
Well, I haven't followed up on that, but I'll tell you. Did we discuss why this is the worst place for Max to be, or have we
Yeah,
not done that? We did, right?
we
Like,
have.
I think you did touch it to some extent, but
yeah,
yeah, go on,
yeah,
expand on
because
it.
there's this clear Netflixization of Formula One that we are seeing. George Russell walks up today and says, "I don't have pen on paper, even though I've won, performed, whatever this season," because clearly Max is talking to Mercedes. Okay,
I like what George has been doing these last 2 weeks, to be very honest. But yes, continue.
which is reading out the script of Drive to Survive season 9 or whatever that season's going to be next year. But I think it's all orchestrated. Look at the optics. Red Bull's home race. Red Bull Racing is owned by Red Bull. Okay, this is where the Red Bull management will come. Is this a way to destabilize them? Do they need more destabilization? For example, we could ask that
George has
question.
definitely been watching their fun movie.
Yeah. Is it out yet?
No, but you're right. You're right. He's literally playing mind games with Max and Red Bull,
Yeah.
and it puts them
And,
in.
or let's flip it. Let's flip it. Has he gone out of sequence with Mercedes? Because he's like, you guys are not giving me a contract. Okay, I'm gonna go tell the world you're talking to Max. Let me go mess it up. And honestly, I don't think it's that. I don't think like if George was not performing and then he used the media, and we've seen, for example, drivers like Checo Perez use the media, and it's fine, it's fair.
Yeah.
So my reading in all of this is, wow, let's just create this whatever suspense around everything, and that's my reading, which is why it's the worst place for Max. First is because of this whole scenario. If it is true, then it's well played, Yoss, I would say. If it's not true, well, Well played, all the clickbait media and the followers on social media for hyping it up. Yes, and the other reason why it's the worst place for Max is he's still got 1 point he could take. The new penalty guidelines, or actually they've just clarified the penalty guidelines, I would say. And Austria is one of those races. I mean, think of all the turns, all of 10 turns, out of which three aren't even turns. So that's all of 7 turns, out of which you have turns three if you count the right hander leading into turn four, another
Turn
right
4.
hander. Both of them you can actually mess things up. Okay, five is
Yeah.
fine. 6, 7, and 8, 9. Okay, you could still mess things up. Either you're in battle, you put a wheel in the grass, have anyway. This is the race that Soumil calls track limits, Formula One, or Austrian Grand Prix. So there could be so many things, including something as simple as entering the pit lane is not simple
Yeah.
in Austria. So the worst place Max could be for saving that 1 point, because if he crosses 30th of June, he's okay. Okay.
At
He
least for a few months.
At
At
least for a
least for
few
a few months.
months. Yeah. So anyway, that's why it's the worst place to be for Max, even though he's won here, what, 5 times?
5 times. 5 times. There's a
Insane.
little error on the F1 website because they say Max has won here 4 times, and they keep forgetting. And we all keep forgetting there's also a Styrian
Styria.
Grand Prix. So he's
Yeah.
won here 5 times.
Yeah. Styrian Grand Prix happened 2 times or something, right?
Yeah. But
Wow.
I really have a feeling George is going to go with plan C for this weekend. C for chaos.
Chaos.
Chaos. Chaos. Sorry. F1 movie reference once again.
And that's how he won here last year.
George, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That's how he won
Chaos.
last year.
And
And it's,
ju-
it's
yeah.
and like Kunal says, turn 3, turn 4, if you're the car that's on the outside and you're trying to make a move on the car on the inside, if Max is on the inside, it's very, very tricky for them to be put in that position. And if you're pushed onto the gravel, it's very possible that you'd get a penalty. It's happened several times before in the last several years. Lewis Hamilton on Alex Albon, infamously. So
Yeah.
like Kunal says, it's a very tricky place for Max to keep it clean, especially if the sort of stuff that George has been up to over the last couple of days.
Sadhana is here saying we love a Kaleshi Russell. Yeah, I'm sort of loving this, George Russell thing. Okay, quick question. I just need one answer. If this Mercedes to Max is actually happening, who do you think will partner Max Verstappen at Mercedes?
Kimi
Sundaram, you
Antonelli.
go first. Okay, you already
Kimi.
went first.
Kimi.
Easy.
Wow.
Easy.
Even though Toto Wolff has said George is a part of the Mercedes family,
Not
it's
buying
a
that.
matter of
We are
He
not
has
buying
to
that.
say that. He has to say that because he has to say that.
yeah.
Like, I don't buy it.
Okay.
No.
I think it's gonna be George Russell who's gonna have to leave. Unfortunately, he's I mean, Toto Wolff has hyped Kimi Antonelli so much that now if he drops Kimi Antonelli, it'll be an embarrassment.
It's a bigger embarrassment than dropping George.
Yeah,
So you might as well drop
yeah,
George.
yeah, and it's a bigger embarrassment than then giving him the jump as well, because you have to,
Yeah.
when you promoted Kimi Antonelli out of sequence, out of whatever, you're suddenly like, that's the next Max. And but Max of this generation versus Max of the next generation versus Max of the previous generation, which is Lewis Hamilton, versus Max of the previous generation, which is Fernando Alonso. That's what 2026 could give us.
Just put Max in the Mercedes, put Russell and Fernando in that Red Bull, and see them win the title next year. That's all.
Oh.
Referring to Red Bull, not Mercedes.
Ooh. That would be dynamite.
In all aspects. In all aspects.
Oh man. That'll be a good season. That'll be, if that does happen.
Yes.
Man. But no, there's no way they're going to be dropping Kimi Antonelli this early. And I just wonder the after effect of it, because what happens if George Russell is suddenly available?
I think he will go to Red Bull, clearly.
Red Bull or Aston.
That can't
Only
be
two
true.
places.
That can't be
Oh, the
true.
only two places he can be at.
Aston, I feel more likely, but Red Bull getting someone from outside the system. Do they? It's actually you might know more, Kunal. Is the system that important of a thing in Red Bull racing anymore? Because there's been a big management change. The core Red Bull bosses, Dietrich, he's not alive anymore, unfortunately, and so there's been a shift of power as well. I believe.
Yeah, that's what we. What do you say? We saw that even with Helmut Marko when he was on our show. He actually said it's the first time the shareholders are getting involved in a driver decision, which was to let go of Checo Perez. And like Checo Perez said, I raced for 4 years, they paid me for 6, or I charged them for 6. I love that line that Checo Perez put out there. But I think the system is always important, but they always have found a balance, whether it was hiring Mark Webber from outside, David Coulthard from outside, Checo Perez from outside. Before Perez, even Hulkenberg was being spoken of from the outside. So if there is somebody waiting in the wings, they will give that driver the wings. They will give that driver the opportunity. Much like I think Arvid Lindblad seems like the guy who will get that next opportunity. But I don't think we'll see a Yuki and Arvid in Red Bull Racing next year. I think they will need
You're
somebody
forgetting
like
Isaac. You're
Exactly what I
forgetting
was about to
Isaac.
say.
yeah, yes, or even Isaac. What I mean
Yeah.
is, in a new rule set, they will need the likes of a George Russell or somebody, who's I don't know, Daniel Ricciardo, Sebastian Vettel. Vettel's talking about replacing Helmut Marko. Maybe he should just come and replace Max Verstappen. You never know. After
That'd be a
leaving,
nice team.
yeah,
Imagine if Vettel comes
Yeah.
back, Danny comes back. Very
and
nice.
and Sebastian Vettel left Red Bull at the end of 2014 because he was not happy with how they coped with the new regulations. Imagine him coming back to, sort of balance that move out, saying, I actually trust where you guys are going in 2026. Come on, give me the car. And then boom, he's racing it. So anyway, what else do we have to talk
F1
about?
movie sequel. Sebastian Vettel returns to Red Bull.
Will we call it F2?
Well, imagine if that's the plot. Sebastian comes next year, wins the title, and slips into oblivion. Ah, lovely.
It's the most anti-Sebastian Vettel thing to do. That's why.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
He'd much rather be in private, chilling, helping out bees. I wonder what he thinks about the F1 movie. Has anyone gotten to ask him?
Why
Haven't
don't
heard
we
anything.
why don't we try that?
Why don't we try that? Yeah, exactly.
But since we are mentioning Kimi Antonelli, etc., I'd love to see how he goes this weekend, because clearly his name is being discussed in this. He doesn't know if he's in or out or whatever, and you won't know till you actually know. But this was the place where Kimi Antonelli first drove an F1 car in his lifetime in 2024. He drove the W12, and that I'm sure this is like that first time you realize you're in love kind of thing, and the first time you drive a Formula One car is always special. But that's what I'm looking to see with Antonelli. And guys, we should remember there are 8 other teams as well. Alpine 101st race in Formula One, which also means Aston Martin's 101st race in Formula One. And what else is there? I think Racing
Who
Bulls.
wants the quick stat?
Go for it.
Oh, go for it.
So Fernando Alonso is going to be the oldest driver to start a Grand Prix in 50 years on Sunday.
Wow.
He's going to be the oldest since Graham Hill in 1975. 43 years and 11 months.
No. So does that make him the oldest F1 driver ever? Properly, like
In the last 50
yeah,
years,
in the
Graham Hill
last
was
50.
older.
Oh yeah, before
Last 50
that
years.
we had Graham Hill. Fangio was I think 61, wasn't he when he?
No, 61. But
Not 60,
Michael
but
was a little over 43 when he last raced.
Fangio was surely in his 50s. I remember surely
No one's
50s at least.
raced.
Like
50s, yes, 50 years, 50s, yes, 50s,
yeah.
yes.
Hmm.
And I also did a little bit of stats digging over the last couple of hours, especially because there's been a lot of hype around Alex Dunn finishing in the top four in FP1. If you didn't know that, Soumil. So a lot of people have been asking me questions. Is this the best performance by a rookie? So I sat down to find the answer to this, and turns out it's the best or the joint best result by rookie in the last 2 decades. Take a wild guess who's done this. Who's done better? Who's done better on their?
Kevin Magnussen?
He's a Le Mans winner, very recently as well.
Robert Kubica?
Robert Kubica, in his very first F1 outing in Bahrain 2006 as a test driver, goes and tops the timesheets.
Impressive.
And the one before that, Vitantino Liuzzi, in Red Bull's very first race, topped FP1.
What?
Yes. So there have been just 5 instances of drivers being in the top four in their very first F1 outing in the last 25 years. So Vitantonio Liuzzi, Robert Kubica, Lewis Hamilton P4, your favorite driver Carlos Sainz P4 in Australia 2015, and now Alex Dunn P4. I'm done.
We
I'm
should
done
have
for today.
we should have asked him, Kunal, about this. Like we had a chance to speak to him last year. We didn't get to.
I
This race,
forgot to mention
Sundaram.
this. I
Wow.
forgot
Was
to
it
Yeah.
mention this.
last year? Or was it early? It was earlier this year, Soumil.
This
Yeah,
year.
you're kidding me. You're kidding me.
Yeah, it was earlier this
Time
year.
flies.
Yeah,
Time flies. But wait, the first race was this must have been 2005 Australia, no?
Yep. Yep.
He topped it. Wow. I can't believe it. I,
What a way to make your debut in Formula One for Red Bull and Liuzzi.
hey, speaking of debuts, another trivia question. Do you know who else made their debut that weekend? 2005
2005,
Australia.
Naren Karthikeyan. Yeah.
Bingo.
Hey.
Can't can't beat the stats guru.
Yes.
Cannot. What a
Okay.
race.
What else have we got? Come on.
But you know, in this episode, we're speaking about everything barring Austria. For some reason, we've gone on to so many different directions, and I love it. I think we should follow this route more often because the kind of nerdy stuff we can get out.
Yeah. But any Ferrari fans in the house, and I know there are lots of listeners, viewers. I know, Samuel, you've always got a Michael Schumacher flag behind. I know
I do.
Fernando Alonso made Sundaram fall in love with Ferrari. Of course, very interesting. Ferrari has actually brought one of their key upgrades to the race this weekend. Okay, they've got floor upgrades. They're upgrading the diffuser as well. And this is a step towards understanding if they are able to go as low as they could in China, will they actually be more competitive? Okay. Uttara is asking if McLaren's upgrades are clearly for Lando. Who are Ferrari's upgrades really meant for? They're meant for all of
Nice
us.
question.
It's meant
Nice
for
question.
the tifosi. It's meant for everyone crying and wondering when will Ferrari be competitive. It's actually meant for Frederick Vasseur because that poor
Yeah.
man has been put under the bus by the Italian media. Of course, you know, it seems a very coordinated attack on Frederick as well. But interesting question, like Sundaram said. And I think if Ferrari's suspension, which is expected to then follow up, you know, to the floor in the next race in Silverstone or maybe the one after that, if that works and if they are able to go lower, I expect them to be quicker in the
Yeah.
next several races of the season. Pankit, Ferrari fan through and through. And I think this is where I quote that everyone's a Ferrari fan. And then what Sebastian Vettel said, you know, even if you don't say you're a Ferrari fan, you are a Ferrari fan. Which is why,
Exactly.
you know, even drivers who race for Mercedes owned Ferraris, even Toto Wolff owns a Ferrari and so on and so forth. But yeah, so Ferrari, that's one team to look out for this race weekend and the next one. And very interestingly, if I can again go a little nerdy in this, what Ferrari's been doing is plank wear management. Okay, how you have, you know, teams doing fuel management and tire management and brake wear management. Ferrari have actually been asking their drivers to do more lift and coast at certain times of the race, especially on Sunday. Not because they're trying to save tires or fuel, because they're trying to make sure they don't wear their plank out further. And I think
Oh
that's
boy.
damn interesting. So Anyone thinking that, my goodness, what is Ferrari doing? Well, they know what they're doing. Just be patient, much like you've been so since what, 2007 or something.
8.
8.
इंतजार कीजिए आप कतार में हैं. You know that kind of phone message that used to come in. Keep waiting, keep waiting. That's the crux of it. But that's a valid concern because Austria sausage curbs. It is
Lots
a
of
big
them.
thing.
Lots of them.
I remember Mercedes once got their plank worn off or something. Like they had flow damage one year. I think 2021 or 19 or something around those lines. But they were running over the curbs quite a fair bit, especially turn number one, where you can really bottom out over there if you run over. And if you miss that corner, there's a long exit route that you've got to take and then rejoin in. So it's not easy for anyone. And as you guys also discussed earlier, this track kind of invites you to go side by side and to make contact with other drivers. And just think of the drivers who've done that: Hamilton, Rosberg, Verstappen, Leclerc, so many
Lando
others as well.
Verstappen.
Lando, Verstappen,
Leclerc, Verstappen.
Leclerc
and that's
Verstappen,
just
yeah.
recent years. Montoya, Schumacher too in the past, perhaps. Did they not?
Soumil had to throw something from 1800s. That's where Montoya.
And I remember when Bob Washer was commentating for the very first time, sometime, and he's a very esteemed guest of ours. He mentioned a story. I think his first race over there was sometime in the early 1980s or late 1970s, and that's when they had a big crash over there as well. That was the old Osterreichring. So where you take a right at turn number one, that didn't used to exist. They used to go even further up, even farther out, and then used to rejoin and have that infield section. So it's a track with a lot of prestige. We just don't talk about it as
Yeah.
much.
It is.
It's
It is. And it's
you know
going
we do
through.
so many guises.
Yeah, and Manny's saying Ferrari building a new car for the last year of these rules was a mistake. Well, okay, is it a mistake? What do you guys think?
I mean, they
Okay, why
wouldn't
do
have
why
done it
why
if they didn't have
Manny?
to.
You should write why you think it's a mistake. While Sundaram goes for this. Okay, sorry.
I mean, I think as a team, they are pretty much smart enough to understand that there's a certain amount of risk involved. But the only reason I can put my finger on is that they probably felt there was a ceiling with their last development route, and they
Yeah.
felt that there was more for them to unpack in this year. I don't think they would have changed the car just because Lewis Hamilton was coming into the team in itself. But if they felt they could unlock more from this version of the car than what they would possibly have done from last year's.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
no other way. And if they don't, Kunal, that's the opposite of what a Formula One team stands for.
exactly. I mean, imagine you going 24 races with more pain, especially in a sport where if you just standing still means going backwards. Okay, so they have to take these. They have to take these risks, and I also believe. Why do you have all these engineers? Okay, you have so that they solve these engineering challenges, right? If your engineers tell you this is a route we need to take, this is what it's going to cost us, it's all working within the budget cap, we will also focus on 2026 and we will take learnings from here into 2026 as well, so be it. I mean, I think Pankit, although of course is saying next year is our year for Ferrari fans like me, which is seemingly true. And Somil, I'm going to pick on what you said. This is a circuit with a lot of prestige, and I so agree with that. It's got history, it's got stories. Österreichring, Avon Ring, 2002, Barrichello, Schumacher, race fixing or podium fixing that had happened at
Yes.
that time, and where Schumacher told Barrichello to take the top step of the podium and then give the trophy, and the FIA said, "You confused fans on TV. Here's 100 million fine or whatever million fine they paid."
1 million, 1 million.
1 million. And then my point is this circuit looks so unassuming. It was a 10 corner circuit, remove 3 corners, it's 7 actual corners. But this circuit actually challenges cars in very different ways. So Mercedes, for example, have always had cooling issues here, and their upgrades this weekend have specifically said this is for cooling purposes on the car. Okay, the brake ducts, specifically, as I remember, are something that they've got more cooling for. Because the brakes take a big beating. There are, I think, 3 successive very high hard braking turns: turn 1, 3, and 4. And that's I don't know how many other circuits have 3 successive ones on them. So the teams are always focusing on cooling. And what you also said about curbs and sausage curbs, I think it's one of the toughest tests for vehicle suspensions. Again, exit of turn one, turns 6 and 7, and for everyone who's listening in, when you see the onboard, especially in qualifying, turn 6 and 7s are the one that's turned left and right. You will literally see how much in the middle of these two curves, okay, or turns, the driver is taking the curb. They're really riding these curves because that's where the lap time is. So I love that this simple circuit can is already challenging the drivers, is already challenging the teams and engineers. It's always about finding a set of balance. And here's another clue why Max Verstappen and Red Bull are not in sync. After Canada, Max was asked, "What about these iconic circuits?" And he said, "Circuits like Monza and Sunfoot and Suzuka and Silverstone are all those iconic classic circuits, and they should always be on the calendar." I guess Red Bull doesn't pay him enough, or maybe he's leaving Red Bull, which is why he didn't say Red Bull Ring is also one of those classic circuits.
I think it's the best of them all for modern Formula One, and I stand true on that. Tell me a boring Austrian GP if you can ever remember one since we came back from the pandemic. I
Right.
can't.
And I discussed this yesterday with Sarang. If Austria doesn't give an interesting race with all these parameters thrown in, the problem is not the circuit. The problem is the formula of Formula One. On that note, on that 47th minute note, which is Mick Schumacher's driver number, predictions. Who's taking pole position?
Lando. This is Lando circuit. Yeah, Lando Norris for me. But Piastri wins. That's what I predicted on the Fan Code Gearbox podcast too. That's the way I see it. Because here you have to fight. It's not a circuit where you can just run away with it. You will be attacked and your racecraft will be tested. And there I know who I think has an edge. So
So the pole position.
Max Verstappen, pole to win.
Pole to
oh,
win. Oh my goodness, his sixth
Chalo.
win.
Yes.
We will expose ourselves in real time after qualifying tomorrow. We will do a post qualifying show as well, even
Let's
though
not do that. Let's not expose ourselves, please.
expose our predictions and
Yes.
how right we got them or not. I'm gonna go with an Oscar Piastri pole position.
Nice.
hmm.
But
Triple threat. Three-way.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. But I think it's gonna be a Max Verstappen race win. I think Max is gonna get that race win.
So
And
George is
but
not even up for consideration after a race win in Canada. Hmm.
That's the life of George. That is the life of George. Oh man.
George
He's
is
actually he's actually
George is
never won back-to-back races in his career.
yeah,
So good
yeah,
time to
yeah.
make a statement this weekend.
Yeah, yeah. It was also he's 1 year in F1, F2, and F3. Since we are, trying to hype up some bit of George, and I think that's also been Mercedes in this era of Formula One. They'll win one and then suddenly go away. But I like what they did in Canada. It was warm, and let's see how they go in Austria as well. Sarika is saying Max. I presume she means Max will top FP3 qualifying race, fastest lap, fastest pit stop, everything, because she's just said Max with a lot of X's. So okay.
I forgot to mention one stat. So you see, this weekend is the last race weekend for Kimi Antonelli to take a very important record from one particular Lance Stroll. So actually, the record for the youngest front row starter goes to Lance Stroll, and this is Kimi Antonelli's last chance to kind of surpass Lance on that list. He's 1 day younger than when Lance was back in 2017 in Italy. Is he going to be on the front row? Do you think, Kimi? Difficult.
I'll put him there.
I'd love to.
You put him there. I think it's
Imagine
difficult.
Max and Antonelli on the front row.
Ah, that's going to be tricky.
On at
Dynamite.
I mean, okay, one sec. We actually see Max and Antonelli on front row at Toto Wolff's home race, which is also why Red Bull doing or Max and Max to Mercedes coming out is also not that out of sync because it's Toto Wolff's home race. But Pankit is saying Lando is going to fumble in Q3, so Max pole. Lando fumbling in Q3 is actually, unfortunately, the headline that we've seen after qualifying every time. The other thing where I think Max has not been that great, and I'm going to do some analysis, is race starts. He's either had some bonkers of race starts, like we saw in Imola, or then he's just had very average ones. And this is the same driver who otherwise used to have some really
Yeah.
scintillating race starts, always attacking, defending, not just staying in position ish. But yeah, okay. What else do we have before we end? Or are we going up to Antonio Giovinazzi's race number in
No,
terms
we
of time
shouldn't.
limit?
We shouldn't. We've done our predictions too. We shouldn't. Just send us your qualifying predictions down in the comments, folks. We will have to call it a day, but we definitely will read them after we're done. And make sure you subscribe to the Inside Line F1 podcast because more shows will be coming, as always. And we will see you for the post race review as well. We'll Oh, it's going to be tough. But yeah, I'm still trying to figure out how I'm going to be making it because I really want to. But we also have the rugby final this Sunday. But we're just
Both
stretching
of you are
that.
What sport is rugby? I mean, come on.
Once you
Let's
see
not
it,
get
you'll
into that
understand.
We've got the
territory.
qualifying post show, by the way. It's Uttara has very clearly said, please give a shout out and tell people to come back. So you guys better show up because a lot of people are wondering what happened. Is everything okay with you guys? Y'all, never skipped a race. Suddenly y'all have skipped the Canadian Grand
Someone
Prix.
did ask me that. Someone did ask me that actually.
My Twitter
Yeah.
inbox and so many people tweeted, and one person actually said, it should be just you and Mithila going back to hosting. You'll never skip a race. I said, can you just guys please take a break? I appreciate the love. I appreciate that you'll still miss Mithila. She misses being here and not just being in the background telling us what's happening and how we should do different or how well we are doing. But yeah, anyway, we're back and qualifying post show, even if it's short, we'll probably be there.
We must find a way. We must find a way. But for now, it is goodbye, folks. We will catch you in a bit. Subscribe to the Inside Line F1 podcast and be right here. Yeah, had to say that. See you, folks.